Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, my guest is Marie van der Zyl, the president of the Board of Deputies. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm wonderful. It's great to see you. I'm very grateful to you. And first of all, if you could begin by telling our listeners, obviously we were very excited to welcome you as a guest to St. John's Wood Synagogue this month. Unfortunately, due to the current situation, we'll have to have a rain check for a future date. But if you could perhaps give us a little bit of a background to the Board of Deputies. What is this incredibly prestigious organization that began in 1760, older than the United States of America? Could you perhaps share with us briefly, what is the Board of Deputies?
Well, thank you very much. And mazel tov, by the way, for the birth of your recent baby. So as you've taken that, the Board of Deputies was formed in 1760. Originally, it was to do homage to the would-be King George III. These days, the Board of Deputies is the democratic representative body, represents the views of the Jewish community to the government, the media, and the outside world. And we are the envy of every other faith community because no one else is organised in the way that we are. So although we think we've got two Jews, three opinions, we are able in most situations to provide a consensus and make sure that we're represented in all aspects of life that affect the Jewish community. We also do a lot of work in relation to other areas. We've got our interfaith activities, education. We have a Jewish living exhibition that goes up and down the country, and so many more things besides that. But we are a truly representative body. We've got three honorary officers. Your own Sheila Gewald, of course, is one honorary officer, and two of those for the first time out of three are women. We also have Gillian Meron, who is the first female chief executive. I am the second woman president in 260 years. So we have come on a long way from how we've started. But of course, the principal thing that we have been known for in recent years, unfortunately, with many other communal organisations, is to take the position to defend the community in relation to anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, which has taken up a huge amount of our work and has been one of the community's biggest concerns.
Sure. Now, I have so many different questions to ask you, but before I do, I want to ask you a more personal question. How did you get involved with this work yourself, to dedicate your life to the Jewish community and this remarkable organisation? Give us a little bit of background how you got involved.
Well, I wasn't actually involved at all. I am a cancer survivor, and a few years later, Rabbi Julia Neuberger suggested that I might want to get involved with the Board of Deputies, and also Simon Myers, who was the executive director at West London Synagogue, also suggested that. And that's how I came to be elected. It was suggested to me there weren't many women, and there were some older individuals there, and that I should go there to see what I could do to bring about some change. So I set off quite late and only became a deputy, believe it or not, in 2012.
Wow, amazing, remarkable. What a remarkable journey. Now, had you been in St. John's Wood, we would have had you having a Q&A with our community. Obviously, there would have been a fantastic Kiddush involved, which unfortunately, there's nothing I can do with providing that. But I've been asking my community to submit questions that I should put to you. Some of them are my own, and some of them are from members of my community. Perhaps you'll be able to differentiate which are the rabbis and which are the members of the communities. But I want to begin with the first question to you, Marie, if I may. So the Board of Deputies is representative of British Jewry, but the challenge that perhaps you may face is only about a quarter of British Jews belong to institutions which have a vote. So will the Board of Deputies ever embrace the principle of one Jew, one vote? And how can you try and ensure, as the demographic of Anglo-Jewry changes, that you are representative of all British Jews?
It's a very good question, whoever asked that. We're not, of course, a parliament, and we do have, as well as the synagogues, we have 39 communal organisations that are members of the Board of Deputies, and as we speak, we're undergoing a huge transformation in our constitution, which is going to be completed in the next few months. So we do want to make it easier for Jewish organisations to actually be a member of the Board of Deputies. Democracy is at the heart of the board. It's very important for all of our work. I'm absolutely accountable, as you're probably reading in the press right now, to every single Jew. And can I say, even if a part of the community isn't within the Board of Deputies, that doesn't mean that we don't work together with them closely. You might have seen, for example, at the end of last week, we had to intervene yet again with the coroner, Mary Hassel. And I would also like to say that we do have a new deputy, Shmuel Yusuf Josephson, who has come from a Haredi community that is United Synagogue, but we have got now a deputy from the Haredi community, which I think is excellent. But we do work closely, whether or not individuals are part of the community. But if you had, for example, one Jew, one vote, I don't think we would get a consensus on anything.
One Jew, three opinions, yeah.
Well, actually, I've gone further than that. I used to say one Jew, three opinions. I now say one Jew, three prime ministers. But also, we've got a lot of remote communities and people in remote places. So we want to try to get everybody to engage. And of course, the Board of Deputies is a national organisation. So I've even been to Aberdeen, which isn't a member of the Board of Deputies, but whether or not anyone is officially part of it, we try to work and include everyone and all Jews. It's at the heart of what we do, but democracy is really at the root of our organisation. But we're not one Jew, one vote, as it were, but we are the envy, can I say, of many other faith communities. No other faith community is as well organised as the Jewish community to be able to represent the community's interests and concerns.
So in other words, if there's a Jew living in Suffolk and they don't have a local synagogue and they don't have so much Jewish connection, but they somehow stumble across this video on YouTube and they want to ask a question or they want to be supported, what would be the process for them to do that?
They can write in, people do, and people can come to our plenary meetings. So we often have people that are involved, but we're happy to talk to anyone, and we have many activities that are in all different types of shuls, and we put online every week in our community briefing all the events that are up and coming, and everybody is very, very welcome, and anyone can look on Facebook or on our website for those up and coming events and be part of our work.
Sure.
But it's a constant aim to be inclusive of all Jews.
You know, on your website, what it discusses the various issues that the board identifies to try and address, and they include the following: anti-Semitism and extremism, Israel and the Middle East, education, religious freedoms and inequalities, interfaith and social action, and international advocacy. And I'd like to touch on some of those, because you mentioned how we'll start with anti-Semitism and extremism. The work that the Board of Deputies have done to combat anti-Semitism is really quite impressive. Have there been other communal organisations that have also contributed to the success in the fight against anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. This has been very much a community effort with great support. We've worked particularly well with the CST and the Jewish Leadership Council. And I'd also like to mention a Campaign for Anti-Semitism. Gideon Falter's done some magnificent work. And I think that that's something that's really important, a good example of a young leader that's really contributed. And the work in relation to prosecutions of anti-Semites and the work that he's done generally is something really to be commended. And
we're so proud that he's a member of St John's Wood Synagogue as well.
Well, that's great. And one day he might want to be a deputy in the CAA, become a member of the board, and then he can come and have his voice heard even more. But can I say, whilst we're talking about contributions, I really want to say I value the contribution. Sheila Giewald, our Senior Vice President, Roger Grewald, our Deputy, Simone Klaas and Anne Godfrey, they all do magnificent work, all
Absolutely.
on a voluntary basis, representing your community. So I want to make sure they're thanked for all their work.
Thank you so much. The Board of Deputies has a a great relationship with the JLC, as you mentioned, the Jewish Leadership Council, and there's talk of a merger. Would you like to share with us your comments and reflections on that idea?
Obviously, we are a small community, and if you started with a blank sheet of paper, you wouldn't have had two bodies. We're working very well together as organisations during the coronavirus, and I think the working together is the thing that you need to stress. We obviously have got limited resources, and we need to pull together all that we can. But I think that we should be proud during a time of crisis how well us and, can I say, the CST have worked together, and maybe one day we will be able to merge. But at the heart of the Board of Deputies, we are a democratic organisation, so any ultimate organisation would need to reflect our values as a democratic representative body with the deputies, so that all the policies of the community that are put forward and myself are always publicly and loudly held to account. But we really are having a good positive relationship during this time, and I think we need to focus on the positives and all the things that we can all do for the community, because everyone has the community at heart.
Sure. In terms of anti-Semitism, how are you feeling now with the new regime with the Labour Party? Are you feeling energised for the future? What's your current feeling on all that?
My current feeling is that I'm very positive that on his first day of election, Keir Starmer did write to me a very sincere apology. But as we've said before, an apology is not going to be enough. We need to see action. So this is not a case where anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is going to disappear overnight. We're going to have a lot of follow-up, a lot of time, and we're going to have to monitor the situation. There's already been some instances we've had to write, but it's a very, very promising start. And I think anybody is better, quite frankly, than Mr. Corbyn. I think we all have to be relieved that he's no longer the leader of the Labour Party, but it is a positive start. But it's not the end of the story, and a mild regret or an apology on its own isn't enough. So this is work in progress. So nobody should expect to see a radical change, because anti-Semitism runs deep into the Labour Party, and it's going to take years to try and get at that culture to bring about change, because Jews should be able to vote for policies, not because a party has or hasn't got anti-Semites in. So we've got a lot of work still to do.
Absolutely. Talking of the work that's still ongoing and that you are involved with, you touched on this earlier. One of the things that the Board of Deputies is responsible for is, of course, religious freedoms and inequalities. And we were all very saddened and shocked to read about the delay yet again of another Jewish funeral of a very prestigious member of the Northwest London Jewish community. Could you give us a little bit of the background of how you got involved, and there was eventually a successful outcome, and how can we ensure that this just does not happen again?
Well, just to say that the background a couple of years ago was that Mary Hassel instituted something called a cab rank rule for burial, which was challenged in the courts as being prejudicial and discriminatory, and that was upheld. It was, and that had to be changed, and that was of huge concern, not just to the Jewish community but also to the Muslim community. So a protocol was drawn up after that. But what needs to be borne in mind is that each coroner is independent. They don't even have to follow what they're told by the chief coroner, who can only issue protocols and best practice. I think there will be improvement when we have medical examiners, which we're still waiting for, but at the moment there isn't. And there have been flare-ups in the last few years. But just before lockdown, Mary Hassel was given 3 additional staff by the local consortium without her even asking. And in her Inner London North, she does not, I understand, allow deputies to sign off certificates, which also causes delay. So I got involved because of desperation. The family understandably wanted to be able to bury their father. He was a man who'd given 50 years service to the community. they had tried everything. They'd got their MP, Matthew Offord, involved. They had gone to see Trevor Atherton, a lawyer who'd been involved in the previous case. He had written a letter. And unfortunately, from her reply, it was clear that this wasn't going to happen. There wasn't going to be a burial swiftly. So we got involved because the poor family were at the end of the line. They'd even tried to go to her office. They'd sat there all day in the freezing cold, sobbing all day, trying to see her, to see if she would help. And they were in desperation. They just wanted to be able to bury their father and start the grieving process. And I felt so sorry that this had happened for them, that I made sure that I did all I could in the time that I had to try to bring about a change of heart. So the coroner was under no illusions once we wrote to the chief coroner and started to write to other politicians that this would really be upping the situation if she didn't do what she needs to do as a coroner. And can I stress, Inner London North is the only area in the whole country that has this problem. There is nowhere else. And I understand that a Muslim family had to wait 3 weeks also for a body. And the fact that everyone else can manage, I think, says a lot. So we have to keep monitoring this situation, but I'm sure you can see if anything happens, we will be there straight away. We will help support any family.
Unbelievable. It's really saddening, but very heartening to hear this, and to hear the way in which you took a stand. And frankly, you know, we have a concept in Judaism, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zel Hazeh, which means all of Israel are guarantors for each other. We are all responsible for each other. And I think that's very much at the center of what the Board of Deputies does. It takes responsibility to try and help and ensure that our community is represented within this country. Let me ask you my next question. Turning to Israel and the Middle East, that's another very important aspect of the Board of Deputies. And there's a view that the Board of Deputies should formally resolve never to express a view on Israel political matters. Would you support that change in the Constitution? What's your view in that regard?
It's not a constitutional matter. Our change in the Constitution that we're processing with at the moment isn't going to cover that at the time. I think my statements on Israel this week are well documented. You can see that there is quite a lot of different statements and letters that the board is receiving, both in support of the board's position not to get involved, in the sense of not criticising the state of Israel, and the board is being pushed, as is usual, on all sides of the fence. But I want to just say that the message is that we continue to confirm the importance of a two-state solution leading to a secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. And given the divisions in the community, we will not take a view on which towns should be on which side of the border, which will be a matter for the Israeli and Palestinian negotiators. So that is what has been said at the moment. But I don't think any organisation can take binding principles like you're suggesting for the future. But you do need to bear in mind that we are the Board of Deputies of British Jews, and we're here to safeguard Jewish traditions and the community's interests in the UK. And of course, I think that most Jews have a very, very deep, meaningful relationship with Israel, which is at the heart of many of our identities. And the board's constitution is to promote the welfare and defence of the state of Israel, and supporting the two-state solution, which is set out in our manifesto, which you can see online, clearly sets out the board's position in relation to that.
Okay, thank you. You know,
but can I stress, we are a place where everybody's views matter. We're there for all Jews, and everybody is entitled to have their voice heard. That's why we are a democratic organisation. So anyone that wants to perhaps silence a certain section of the community, even if you don't agree with their views, That's not the place of the Board of Deputies. But what I'm asking for is tolerance and respect from people who give different views.
Sure. Although I guess the challenge is there will be lone voices in the community who have very negative views or have very kind of radical views and certain views that are not representative of the majority of Anglo Jewry, and that's a challenge that you face.
It is a challenge. It is a challenge that I face all the time. You'll have probably seen the Jewish Chronicles comment this week where it says that the president is on a tightrope, and that indeed can happen. Sometimes it's not always possible to reach a consensus, and in relation to this issue, there are very, very divided views, and that's why the board has to be there for everybody to enable their voices to be heard. And it can get quite intense, because every so often there are issues that come up that really cause people to feel that they want to give their views extremely passionately. And this is good, because this is why the Board of Deputies is there. But I'm constantly getting requests, for example, for a certain organisation to be excluded from the board, and I have to say that we are a democratic organisation, and all members within the board are given an opportunity to have their voice heard.
So it's quite a political role in a sense as well. I mean, you were described in the press as a fighter, somebody who takes a compliment to be compared to a Rottweiler. Is that right? Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that particularly.
Somebody sent me in this question, and again, I can only tell you what I've been sent in. You were described as compare yourself to a Rottweiler, and the only difference is a Rottweiler will eventually let go.
Look, you have to have tenacity, and you have to be thick-skinned to do this job. I can get a lot of online abuse. Things can get very, very difficult. And right now, for example, when you've got compelling demands put most forcefully, it is a tough one. But to represent the community, it's almost like being an MP for the Jews.
Sure.
It is difficult, and of course you don't want to disappoint anybody. And everyone's got their own opinion, their own agendas in their minds. But we are wonderful. We have a wonderful, diverse community which we should celebrate. And as I said before, we're the envy of other faith communities in how we have, since 1760, managed to organise ourselves so that we can represent ourselves to government, the media, the outside world. And in terms of communities abroad, I'm also the chair of the European Jewish Council and a vice president of the European Jewish Congress, and a vice president of the World Jewish Congress. So we play our part in international affairs, and we work with our worldwide counterparts, because, for example, anti-Semitism is a global disease and it needs a global solution. So I think it shouldn't be forgotten that we are part of a much bigger world, the Jewish community, and that is something that's very, very important. Probably not something that's thought about, but we do have very, very good working relationships throughout the world to tackle similar problems like anti-Semitism and threats to Jewish traditions.
Sure. And looking at, over the last 2 years, the impact you've already made, and in the national press, the one quote where you labelled Chakrabarti report as a whitewash, that was carried widely across national media.
Yes.
You were at the forefront of the campaign that you already talked about, of the cab rank policy by the Inner North London Coroner, and which the High Court recently ruled that was discriminatory, right? Your negotiations with King's College London resulted in the adoption of the internationally recognised IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. So you've had a lot of achievements. Looking back so far, it's only been 2 years, what would you say is your greatest achievement, and what has been your greatest challenge?
I think my greatest achievement is, in my view, is being with all the different communities that I've come across. It's the most wonderful thing I'm quite travelled to different communities for Shabbat, and just to be with people, because to me, helping people, serving people is really what it's all about. And our interfaith work, I think is also something that's very important to me, is amazing. Our greatest challenge has been dealing with and continuing to deal with anti-Semitism. And that has got to be the greatest challenge, because when you had 40% of Jews in a survey saying that they would consider making Aliyah if Jeremy Corbyn became Prime Minister, that's something I'd never heard in my lifetime. So this has been the biggest fight of our generation in dealing with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. And that is a huge challenge. And then, just as I thought it would now perhaps be slightly easier, we've all had to deal with the coronavirus, which has caused the most tragic losses worldwide, of course, and in the Jewish community. And the impact of that is going to be felt for some time. So I don't think we can assume that we're all going to be back to normal. So I think that's also a big challenge to come.
And ending on a more positive note, what does the future feel like for you, for British Jews, the future in this country post-corona? How are things going to shift and change? I know we've seen a lot going online. You're now doing your Board of Deputies stuff online as well. But give us a bit of an insight what you think the future is like for 21st century British Jews.
I think Jews throughout history have shown tenacity. They're entrepreneurial, they're resilient. I think we will be here. We always will find a way. We will work together. I am positive for our future. There will be challenges along this journey. There always will be challenges. But I'm confident that if we can stay together as a community, and that's what one of my biggest challenges is at the Board of Deputies, to keep people together, even with their differences, whether it's views, diversity, denominations, that if we can all remember we're Jews, I think the future can be very, very positive. But the world is in for some difficult challenges following coronavirus. We all know that, but we will be there to play our part. And I'm so proud of the Jewish community. I'm proud of its diversity. It's the most amazing community. And it's been my honour to be the President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews.
Well, Madam President, it's been my honour to interview you this morning. And if I could just end, as we approach Shavuot, our commentators tell us that Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, the Jewish people, they dwelt by Mount Sinai in the singular form, because there was tremendous Jewish unity at Mount Sinai. And please God, we should continue to see that blessing of Jewish unity, because we are stronger when we are unified. And thank you for answering my questions. And we look forward to that day when you will be able to come and join us in St. John's Wood Synagogue and take part in the Kiddush as well.
I look forward to it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best.
God bless. God bless. Thank you.